for joining me today. Today, I want to discuss heat pump systems, how they operate, and the benefits of them, and the difference between heat pump and any other system. I'm gonna get right to it. I'm gonna make this as short as possible. But a heat pump is actually just a electric system with the exact same parts inside, but on the outside the condenser is just a little bit different because it has a reversing valve. And what a reversing valve is, it switches the flow of refrigerant, and I'm gonna go into detail on that. That's what makes a heat pump different from any other system. Now, normally, an air conditioner system is only used in the summertime, whenever the climate is hot. Um, you don't use them in the wintertime. In the wintertime, a person with regular AC would use either gas or electric. But for instance, with the heat pump, you're going to use your condenser year round. That's what you use outside for 6 to 8 months out the year, or however, wherever, depending on where you stay at. But when you got a heat pump system, you're going to use that year round. You're going to use that condenser in the summertime, and you're going to use it in the wintertime. And when you're dealing with the regular AC, you're going to have the condenser outside. It's going to be creating a lot of heat with the electricity of the compressor running. And with the compressor, the job of a compressor is to pump a vapor refrigerant at a vapor state through the system. So you can look at the um, compressor like a heart, and your heart in your chest pumps liquid. Well, a compressor pumps vapor. It pumps refrigerant at a vapor state. So as it's pumping, and when it pushes, it creates heat. And when it creates heat, that's the hottest level of refrigerant in at that particular part of the system. That's where a lot of heat is generated, and it pushes it through the condenser, and your condenser fan throws that heat out. As it throws the heat out, it makes the refrigerant become back to a liquid when it's cool, and then it starts heading into the house to go spray through your evaporator core, as we call the flash gas, where it's a mixture of 80% liquid and 20% vapor. So mostly you want it at a closest to a vapor liquid as possible. Now, when you're dealing with a heat pump, you're gonna have, instead of your condenser throwing out heat, it's gonna throw out cold. Well, your evaporator on the inside becomes your condenser, and the condenser outside becomes your evaporator. So when you have your condenser outside, is going to run at a lower temperature, and it's going to make the heat that is outside absorb into the refrigerant, and you blowing it back into the house. Now it does that by heat pump is only efficient, after 30 degrees, it's not as efficient anymore. And I was taught that there's no such thing as cold. It's just a lack of heat. So when it's 30 degrees outside, it's just no more heat out there. So in that state, in that state, the electric heat strips will come on the inside, and it will confiscate for the heat until it warms up outside a little bit. So when you run your compressor, and that's the source of heat that you have, then that's not as expensive as running electric heat strips or running your gas furnace. So that's the benefit of having a heat pump, is that when the temperatures are above 30 to, however warmer it is, it doesn't cost as much to run a heat pump. Now, If you just running straight electric, it's going to cost you almost 3 times as much as it would with a heat pump. So your heat pump, a person with a heat pump would typically almost have somewhere around the same electric bill as they did in the summer as they did in the winter. It may be slightly above, but it should be somewhere around the ballpark. It shouldn't fluctuate too much of a difference. But once it's out cold outside, it's going to be a more demand for heat anyway. But um, that's the best that I can describe a heat pump because um, I mean it's a lot that goes into play from a technician standpoint, but to be able to explain that to a customer or to someone that's not familiar with it, that's the best that I can explain it because the best way to explain it is your evaporator becomes your condenser and your condenser becomes your evaporator. And so the same temperature that the evaporator was running when you got R22, it's going to be running around 35 degrees. So now you got a condenser outside running at 35 degrees. So let's just say that it's 45 degrees outside. It's going to pick up that 10 degrees plus the heat that the compressor has, and it's shooting that inside the house. So that's it's a good effective way to heat a house, and that's what a heat pump is. I appreciate you watching today. I hope that makes any sense to you. If you have any questions or any comments, please leave them in the description below. Thank you for joining me today. Bye bye.